and we have been discussing various aspects of assessment of skill among the preschool children. And today we'll be discussing about the second part, in which we'll be learning how many types of assessments are there for preschool children. Although in many schools in India, we do not understand different kind of assessment which can help in improving the kids' skill in a very, very structured way. Therefore, it becomes very, very important for all the teachers, all the parents to know how many types of assessments are there and how we can effectively use them for the growth of our children. Now, there are many types of assessment where various aspects of skill development are concerned. So, in a way, in most of the academic sphere, we use 7 types of assessment, and those assessments are widely implemented. But unfortunately, in most of the schools, due to lack of better understanding, we fail to adopt those nicely crafted various assessment tools. Number one, what we call is the diagnostic assessment, or sometimes we call it a pre-skill assessment. Details of that we'll just go and learn in our subsequent slides. Second type of assessment is called formative assessment. Third type of assessment or third category of assessment is the summative assessment. Fourth one is called conformative assessment. Fifth type of assessment is called norm-based assessment or norm-referenced assessment. The sixth one is the assessment which is termed as criteria-based assessment, or sometimes we call it criterion referenced assessment. Last one is called ipsative assessment. So there are 7 types of assessment available in the academic sphere which can be adopted for assessing various skills that we have been planning to improve in our kids. But important thing is that all the type of assessment is not stand-alone assessment. All the assessment can be used in a proper way so that everything can be clubbed together and used in a very, very effective manner for the skill development of the child. Now come to the very first one, which is called diagnostic assessment. Let's understand what does this diagnostic assessment mean. A diagnostic assessment is a form of pre-assessment or pre-test where the teachers or educators can evaluate the student's strengths, weakness, knowledge, and skill before their instruction or before starting a particular skill plan for a student. We need to understand how far the child understand a particular skill, or to understand a particular skill, what does the child need to have. I'll give you one example. If the child, we want to teach or skill a child in terms of sentence formation, we know that sentence is formed by mixing some words. If the child doesn't understand the words, forming sentence will be very, very difficult. Therefore, if a teacher's objective is to make the child form a sentence, and the child has to be tested on the knowledge on a particular word. So when we test child skill on the skill about a word, that is called diagnostic or pre-assessment. Now in this, if we look to the educated kids assessment system, then Educated Kids has got a prime academic kit in which all the children in the age group between 2 to 6 years have been tested through a pre-assessment or what we call as the initial skill assessment. If we admit a child into play group, then the child must attain some type of developmental milestone or any other skills which will help the child pick up all the curricular based skill that is designed in the playgroup. Similarly, whatever curricular and syllabus based skill that is designed in the class of nursery or LKG or UKG, that must be preceded by some sort of skills that child must have. If child doesn't have those skills, then it will be a futile exercise for the educators and preschool teachers to work on those skills for the child. Therefore, diagnostic assessment is very, very important in a preschool setup because developmental milestones are important factors which affect the knowledge which can be gained by a child through the curricular things. Now we'll move to the next one. The second assessment type is the formative assessment. Let's understand what does this formative assessment mean. Formative assessment basically monitors students' learning to provide ongoing feedback that can be used by instructors to improve their teaching, by the students to improve their learning. It means that all of us know that learning and teaching is an ongoing process. It's not like that we just today we think we'll teach something, child will understand, and child will move on. It's not like that. Child continues and there is a process, continual process, the child understands. So as we know that we must have a weekly teaching plan or monthly teaching plan in order to make the teaching as a structured teaching. Now, when a preschool teacher is spending time with a child for the skill improvement, we cannot wait until end of the year to check whether the child has achieved the skill or not. It is important to specify the skill learning activities or objectives in that particular month so that when the child is being assessed by end of this month, we can say that if the child has understood or if the child has achieved the desired skill specifically designed for that particular month. If we are not doing that in that particular month, in that particular week, then what will happen? Then, as I said, the teaching and skill building process is a continual process, and every day we bring a new thing to teach. If the previous things have not been understood, then latter things will be very, very difficult for the child to understand and grasp. That's why in between every frequency or very frequently testing or assessing a child's skill is very, very important, which is done through formative assessment. Now, again, Eduvarate Kids has built up a monthly assessment plan in its curriculum. So each month, Eduvarate Kids has picked up a set of developmental milestones specifically for that particular age and particular month, and a set of curricular milestones which is scheduled for that month. By combining together, Eduvarate Kids has made a list of 25 to 35 kind of skills which can be assessed by the teacher at end of every month. So monthly assessment kit under Prime of Eduvarate Kids curriculum is a very, very good example of the formative assessments. So what is the benefit of this formative assessment? Benefit is that we cannot afford a child to go ahead without ensuring that the child has completely understood whatever has been planned in the previous month. For that purpose, it becomes very, very effective if a child has not understood a particular skill, then at least the teacher will have the clue how to improve those skills before going further. That's why this formative assessment becomes very, very important. Now we'll move to the third assessment, which is called summative assessment. What does this summative assessment mean? Summative assessment evaluates students' learning at the end of an instructional unit by comparing it against some standard or benchmark. Now we know that any learning is a continual process, and the way the whole thing is designed in different countries and specifically in India, that 1 year is considered to be one complete academic year. In that academic year, we are having months, and few months together, we define that unit or term. Then one whole year in a very, very typical way is divided into two terms. Term one consists of 4 to 5 months of learning, and term two consists of another 4 to 5 months of learning. So the summative assessment basically evaluates all the learning in one term. So what we have done is that now once formative assessment is done, we have ensured the child has understood on a daily basis what is being taught in the class, the skill has been achieved. Now once one unit or one term gets over, then it becomes very important because the term is fixed by keeping few things in mind. So the child's understanding in each and every aspect that was included in that particular term is assessed through the summative assessment. Now, Adiveret Kids has created again a set of midterm and end-term assessment kits. And this midterm and end-term assessment kit pulls together all the things that was planned in that 4 months or term one, which is called midterm examination, and again another 4 months of the syllabus, which is pulled together and put into a kind of assessment kit that is called as end-term examination kit. So Adivaret Kids has nicely designed this midterm exam paper and end-term exam paper in order to ensure that summative assessment is done without much difficulty for all the children in the preschool years. So Prime Kit of Adivaret Kids curriculum is the best example of midterm and end-term examination, and that is the summative assessment. Now, going further, next one is called conformative assessment. The fourth one is called conformative assessment, and conformative assessments basically find out if the instruction or pedagogy is still a success after certain period. It also reconfirms that the child has achieved the desired skill. Now, what happens under pedagogy? Teachers, we adopt various techniques and various mechanisms so that the child understands a particular skill without much difficulty. Child loves it, child enjoys it, and end of the uh, skill building period, the child actually gets that skill. So now the mechanism is effective or not. That is the main purpose of having this conformative assessment. Now, if we want to give an example, in Adivaret Kids curriculum, we have the time kit, which consists of initial assessment, which consists of monthly assessment, and we have got midterm and end-term assessments, which takes care of both diagnostic assessment, formative assessment, as well as summative assessment. Now, as a part of the curriculum or the process that Adivaret Kids has designed into its system that once the initial assessment is done or monthly assessment is done, everything will be shared to the parents. Parents will be having complete access through that structured documentation so that the parents can double check and parents can reconfirm that yes, the child has achieved that skill. And whatever technique that is being used by the teachers in the school, that gives result in terms of the child getting that desired skill. Now the teachers themselves also, once they complete the formative or summative assessment and check the child's understanding into a particular skill, they feel that it is not effective for the child, then what we do in the curriculum or in our process, that we have a prime technique. We say to that teachers or parents what kind of technique you can further use. Either it's a play technique, either it's a cue technique, whether it's a ask technique. There are various techniques that educated kids has put into the curriculum. So if one technique is not effective, then definitely teachers or parents can just move around and check other techniques if they can be useful. So under conformative assessment, while educated kids is providing different alternative for the skill building by identify where the child is missed out and reconfirms the skill by the parents, the curriculum designed by educated takes care of conformative assessment in a very, very structured way. Moving further, next one is the norm referenced assessment. Now, what does this norm referenced assessment? It refers to an assessment that ranks students on a bell curve to determine the highest and lowest performing students or on any other norm. Bell curve, I'll not take you to the technicality of a bell curve. Bell curve is actually called a normal distribution. That means in a class, all the children are not alike. There are some children who are highly capable, highly intelligent. There are children who are not capable enough to pick up a skill. So that is called a norm. If we are not defined a norm against which the child will be assessed, then the assessment doesn't have any meaning at all. So what we do at Eduverate, most of you have been aware that we have done the categorization of the students based on all the assessment we do. We have the fast learners when the score of any assessment that we have included in Eduverate curriculum, if a child scores 100%, we call them as the fast learners. Then children who are scoring more than 90%, and the calculation of percentage is very, very easy and it is self-explanatory in the assessment kit itself. Then any children who are scoring more than 90%, they are categorized as normal children. Any children who are scoring between 75% to 90% of the skill in either initial assessment or monthly assessment or in midterm and interim assessment, they are categorized as slow learners. And finally, any children who are scoring less than 75% in any given skill or any given assessment, they are categorized as developmental delays. Now, how the distribution or how the norm will help the child to achieve better things, we have been discussing many times. We know if we know a child in the category of slow learners, then only we can identify what could be the conformative techniques or any other technique we can adopt on the slow learners, so then we can take them to the normal or fast learner. And since we have already discussed in the age group of 2 to 6 years, it becomes very easy for the children. If they are slow learners, converting them to normal and fast learners are much easier as compared to children in the higher age group. So, this categorization process of educated kids and which is imbibed into its curriculum are very much the example of norm-referenced assessment. Therefore, norm-referenced assessment will provide teachers a chance to work on those children who are not performing well in any given assessment in the preschool years. Now, moving further, the next one assessment is called criterion referenced assessment or criteria based assessment. Criteria referenced assessment evaluates children in an assessment or task which are based on some standards and criteria. Those are predetermined. It's not like that something which we determine today and tomorrow we are assessing the child on that. Cannot be done. It has to be well understood and well structured into the system when we do the criterion referenced assessment. Criterion reference assessment defines the criteria well in advance when the curriculum and syllabus is designed. So, what example we can cite here is that Eduvated Kids, as all of you are aware, that Eduvated Kids has taken 5 major criteria or 5 major skills, and all the assessments are revolving around these 5 criteria. First one is language communication skill, second one is cognitive skill, third one is social and emotional skill, and fourth one is environmental skill, and finally is the movement and physical skill. So, Eduvated Kids, whether it's an initial assessment, midterm assessment, monthly assessment, any assessment, they have all these 5 criteria and 20 sub-criteria when we design all the assessment in the preschool curriculum. So these are the best example of criteria referenced assessment. And if some schools want to define a criteria, you can have criteria like maths, you can have criteria like English, you can have criteria like Hindi subject or any criteria, but defining those criteria are very, very important component in preschool curriculum. Then finally, the assessment is known as ipsative assessment. What does this ipsative assessment mean? It is defined as a specific type of assessment in which the participant or the children or the student are assessed in one option among other socially desirable options. This also ensures continual improvement over time. So why we pick up only one type of assessment in a particular academic year so that we know where the child was 2 months ago and where is the child today. If we do not have a particular one type of or mechanism of assessment, then we cannot compare a child 2 months back and a child today, or a child 6 months back and child today. If child was not doing well 6 months back, but today child is doing good, then we as educators will be happy that child is doing better. But if mechanism would be different, then we cannot have those kind of judgment which will help us to make a statement that the child is improving or not. So if you look from the example perspective, Eduvated Kids has a very, very innovative progress report. And you can see that this progress report, the moment you see a progress report, it is tracking the skill from month 1 onwards. And if you look to the left-hand side and first column, you can see this criteria-based or criteria referenced components, language, communication, cognitive, social, environmental, movement, all these things. And every month, the child's assessment is reflected in this progress report. And the reflection shows whether the child is improving, child is stagnant, child is not improving. So when we know that in month 1 child score 90% and month 2 child is coming back to 80%, that means the technique or the method we use for the teaching purpose or skill building purpose may not be effective in the second month. First month it was effective, but second month it is not effective. So we have to check, modify that technique which suits the child the best. So this is a fantastic example how we can adopt this iterative assessment into our course curriculum. I think as parents or as teachers, you have got a clear-cut idea what are the types of assessments are available for preschool children and how we can accommodate them and adapt them into the preschool curriculum. Those make our child better by end of the academic year. So what I can say at this point of time is that Adiveret Kids curriculum, I think, is the only curriculum which brings all these seven types of assessment structured and bundled into the curriculum, which goes side by side when we just introduce the very first day of the child into the school and last day of the school. All the assessment is bundled and designed so that child is very much assessed, and parents and teachers ensures that the child's skill building process is very very rewarding, and they are in complete awareness how the child is progressing as far as various skills in the preschool years are concerned. Thank you so much for your patient hearing. And these are the technical things we at Adiveret Kids feel are very, very important and critical for the whole skill building endeavor of preschool years. Thank you so much, and we'll just get back to you in another session in coming days. Thank you so much.